Be it the AMC, be it the lenders, what is the process to make a person treat a situation fair?
Let's let Erica finish that because I
Okay.
think that's going to cover part of it.
Yeah. So, you present the argument. Some of these arguments have been weak. And when I send just so you know, when I send the reconsideration form, and it usually it should go to the listing agent, but, we're all working together. So both agents should be working together to try to get the value. There's such thing as guidelines and rules.
Right.
The guideline is within 6 months, within a mile. That's a guide. That's just a guide, but you can break the rule and go outside of those guidelines.
Right.
You're not breaking a rule, right? Go outside to find the comps. So they usually say don't cross a major street, but in some neighborhoods like in the D, you can cross 6 Mile and you're in the same neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
But
Right.
in some, if you cross, for instance, Livernois, well, you're in a total different, right?
That's what you be saying about Pontiac.
Yeah.
That's
So
why I
you-
hate
you-
neighborhood dynamic. Which
you got to understand Detroit, all right? But you can leave. But if you have to go further, you can. The appraiser has to be willing to look for the comp that looks like your house.
But hold
And
on.
if you got to go 2 miles, listen, he can do it.
But
Right.
wait a minute. We're not even talking about the need
That-
or the necessity. So like that rebuttal that I did where I highlighted, so
Mhm.
I have to present all of the comps that we need. This is 0.2 miles, 0.3 miles. We're not talking about even touching, sometimes we're not even talking about touching a quarter of a mile or half of a mile. Not yet
Right.
talking about crossing a major road or going out 1 or 2 miles to find a comp. I'm talking about this stuff is sitting right here.
Yeah. So the next step is to, as Darla was going to get into, is to go to Alera, whatever you want to call it, the state, and file an official complaint against the appraiser. Now,
Right.
your deal probably won't close. The best thing is to go to another lender like Darla did. But if you start reporting these appraisers and filing a complaint against them, they're going to tell all their buddy friends, and then they're going to stop doing that. Okay?
Right.
It's real. Okay, but we have to learn to file complaints.
Right.
And
Instead
we
of just
haven't
walking away.
and we haven't done it.
And you have to do it. And then it's because it takes about a year for those things to get rectified as to why are you, what is the word that I have to be careful on the word?
Why you effing up my
Inferior.
appraisals? Right.
Inferior.
Okay.
Okay, inferior. So they're saying your property was inferior to the other properties.
Right.
But
The
some of
other
these,
C1.
yes, okay, which is ridiculous because you have interior photos. That other deal that you were doing, the 203K, you're talking about rehabbing. A total rehab was
Yeah.
$85,000.
Yeah.
$85,000.
$85,000.
Down to $19,000.
Yeah.
To 19.
No, we're talking about, so in that situation, we're talking about an area that had, at bare minimum, should have come in at about 210.
Right.
Trying to get more, but 210 was about all you needed, and there were plenty of comps to show. And then you had comps that were in similar condition that were probably sold for around a 165, 170 mark. And they basically came in and said that this house was worth like nothing.
Nothing, like
Like-
19,000. But there's a
Yeah.
house 2 blocks over, no walls, that sold for 140. Had
Exactly. So
nothing
like
in it.
demo down to the studs.
Down to the studs, sold
Down-
for 140.
Right.
He wouldn't even consider that.
And so you're talking about a 203K loan. The idea is you're going to go in here and put $80,000 into this house to bring it up to the standard of these other souls. And you're saying after you put in $80,000, it's going to be worth $119,000.
On a house that has no walls was worth,
140.
Right.
you said the house 140
Yeah.
that had no walls?
They sold it for that. That's what it sold for.
Oh,
Right.
Oh,
Joe said he ready to come on the show finally.
Okay.
Well, he on here live.
Yeah, because I called him.
Mm-hmm.
We need him on
But
the
no,
show.
like he would have been good on this episode because he was furious with that one appraiser. Like he called, he talked about making the complaint, and like he had some valid points. So when we looked at the name of the appraiser, it was consistent with someone that may work in like a Dearborn area.
Right.
And so he was saying basically like if this house was in Dearborn, we wouldn't have this problem. And what he was meaning was so in Dearborn, you got like these little old small houses that may be worth $100,000 or even $200,000 depending on where you are in Dearborn. And then they come and they build a new structure right next to these little tiny houses, and now they're worth $500,000, $600,000, $700,000.
Exactly.
The other argument that he meant was the same small house, they're doing over improvements. Mm-hmm. So they're okay with the over improvements in Dearborn, but they're not okay with the over improvements.
Yeah, that's what the appraiser kept on saying. That you can't go in and do over improvements and then expect a value change.
But in other cities, they'll do it.
That's fine. That's
funny.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I just think in general it's issues. And then I was doing like a refi. So we were talking about something. The lender being out of state. The lenders are having some good like LTVs plus the interest rates are pretty decent. You know, we closed on with some pretty low interest rates for them to be DSCR loans.
Right.
But the lender, the appraiser, like, because in my mind, I'm like, what is like something is happening here. I'm like, I price houses regularly.
Right.
The odds that I'm gonna have an appraisal issue after I price a house doesn't happen.
And if it does, it's not that far off.
It's not that far
off. It's like 5,000-7,000.
So if I'm a broker and I work in a market, multiple markets, and I'm pricing I price houses.
Right.
And I'm pricing houses based on the data that I find.
Right.
And I don't have an issue when this house is going to sell.
Right.
But now I'm an investor who's doing buy and holds and I want to refinance my properties. And now I'm having value issues. Shit ain't adding up in my head. I'm like, what's going on here?
Yeah, you're having value issues on a refinance, but not on a new purchases.
So, exactly.
Right.
So I'm like, it's got to be a refinance thing. And maybe it's something to it being out of state. So I told because Darla was getting ready to order a new appraiser with a different lender within that same brokerage. And I'm like, nope. Don't do it. I've already tried it and it ain't working. We about to try something altogether new. So we went to, one of our broker friends that live in the area. They're local. And it ended up being UWM that closed her deal. And they're here. Facility is here. The only thing that's mind-boggling to me is some of the appraisers that we've had are appraisers that we've had before. So now I'm starting to think maybe it's not an appraiser issue, it's a lender issue. And the lender is playing dumb. Like they don't know. Like instead of just saying like, yo, we don't know the area, they scared to touch that market, they drawing the value back. Like
it could be.
I don't
know.
I
feel
feel
like
a
combination of both.
Or something.
Nah, because in some of the ones that we've had that came in low, this area, that's not that area, So Bagley is not the area, you know what I'm saying? The numbers are there. You can see them
What
clearly.
about Fielding?
Fielding is different. I mean, but Fielding had real numbers too, though. But Fielding is different. Fielding was some BS too, but Bagley, I feel like that's crazy.
Yeah, when we
said
that, so we accepted a Bagley appraisal and we moved forward because when we looked at it, we were like,
we had to check ourselves. We had to be real with yourself too, because they're not always wrong. But in Darla's case, they were way wrong.
Right.
They were wrong. They were wrong in Fielding.
And they was wrong.
But when you said you
on off Dexter.
Yeah.
When you said you had to check yourself, what was the difference in your value versus theirs?
Because like Janita said, so when we buying a property, we are paying attention to the values, right? But shit changed, you know what I mean?
Right.
And people are selling the properties for less than they're getting scared,
right?
Or maybe their appraisal is coming in less. So now that's dropping the values over there. So now by the time we do our DSCR, the numbers change. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So maybe when we bought it 6 months prior, we thought that we would get a certain number. it's been it's damn near saying a decline in market, even though I wouldn't suggest that that's what it is, but it was dang near that in Bagley.
Right.
Yeah, I think in Bagley, the pendulum is just swinging. You got still a lot of dilapidated properties. Then you got investors that's coming in, they newbie investors. And then you got homeowners who maybe have stayed in the house. Like, you got a lot of different things happening over there. And it's that's one of the bigger, like, legal descriptions in the city too.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So I think the pendulum it's kind of swinging. And, you know, we're still trying to figure out, like, where that particular area is going to be at. But we have some areas that's just a little bit more consistent. And you don't have to go far and search high and low. And we're not talking about those appraisers when we look at it and we like, when we first see it, we like, man, this is messed up. And then we get a little mad. But then when we go and check our numbers, we like, well, we probably should just let it go because this one ain't worth fighting. I'm not talking about those appraisals.
Okay.
I'm talking about the ones where it's clear and obvious, like Darla's, that the person coming in here, probably the appraiser on the 2-family flat off Dexter, like, you're discriminating against this area.
He was very biased.
Like,
he was
obvious.
Very nasty with the owner.
Right.
He came in, why are you following me? I mean, just rude.
And the owner, like, I was just trying to make sure you were comfortable and turn some lights on for you.
Right.
So, you know, you got these personalities coming in, and when I'm sitting here and I'm looking at a rehab property, so like my property, my rental property that I have that we just did, I'm looking at interior photos of other comps. Like, you know, this was specifically repaired for the tenant, but based on the other comps in the area. And then when I look at the appraisal, you skipped over the houses that was within 3-4 blocks.
Right.
Touching the house. And you went a mile out.
It's like you tried to find something
the worst ones
you found the worst ones you could find that didn't have improvements, didn't have interior photos. You can see they were purchased cash.
Right.
And those are the comps that you used instead of the remodeled comps.
And the other thing,
my understanding is that appraisers are supposed to use a range. So, like, okay, you got your low end, your high end, and they supposed to have a range. They can't use all bottom end comps, because if you got properties at 170, 180, but then you got some at 210, you have to acknowledge those 210 comps as well if they're comparable. You can't ignore them, just like in most cases, you can't ignore the properties at 170, 180.
One of the things that saved us on one of ours, I believe, I went over there and met the appraiser.
That's what I was going to suggest.
Gave them my little package or whatever. But I stood at the car with them and I said, "You see that house right there?" He said, "Yeah, I see it. The blue and white one." He said, "Yeah, I see it." I said, "I got that one is in here."
Right.
And I think that ended up being one of the determining factors on our appraisal.
That's crazy. So Joe, we need you to get here.
Too,
I
didn't mean to cut you off.
No.
What I was thinking as well is that he never knew that I was a real estate agent, period. He treated me like the general public, which meant I didn't have access unless I was on Zillow.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So if I'm on Zillow, I can't see anything but on Zillow. But I had options to look on both. But because he did not know.
So do you think part of being preparing and being proactive with the appraisal is either not being there or not having interaction with the appraisal? Because you said you think it helped you.
I think in that one situation, it helped because I was able to just realistically point to something that was tangible.
Right.
Like, we could kind of just walk up a little bit and be touching that house.
Right.
And so I think he decided to use that house as one of our comps. Just kind of, it's kind of undeniable.
As
like, it's right there.
It's right there.
There.
And now I know that it's there. But in your case, it probably, do you think if you wasn't there, if you didn't meet the appraiser, you think he would have had a different outcome?
I believe so.
Okay.
I believe so. I think it would have been a different outcome if he just would have probably went in the lockbox or whatever.
Right. Because I'm never meeting my appraisers. Sometime I'll leave comps or the appraiser call me for access, and I'll ask them, "Do you need comps? Are you familiar with the area, school system, and all of that?" Because some appraisers are coming from. I had an appraiser from Lansing, and when I talk about not knowing the neighborhood, like, there's an area in Southfield, and you got 2 different school districts.
Mm-hmm.
And the values, and it's literally like a half block.
12 mile. You're talking about like
12 and it's like the values are like a $50,000-$60,000 difference. And you can literally walk down a block and have completely different values. And the appraiser had no idea. He couldn't explain. He was like, can you explain to me why Fairfax here is so much difference from Fairfax there? And I had to explain it to him.
I feel like that's crazy though, because you can see that, and that's in the data. You can see the school district. You can see the school
but
district.
He didn't know he wasn't from here. And he
should be doing
that's
your
a lot of
job.
extra work.
Yeah,
But
that's what I'm saying.
My appraiser that I had on one of the houses over in Bagley for a seller, I met him over there. He was an older gentleman, and I just didn't think he was gonna take my comps. But when I gave him the package, and he looked through them, he said, "Oh, I didn't see that one." He said, "Where did you get this one from?" It was like 2 or 3 of them in there. He said, "Okay, this is really good. Thank you." And I was like, "Shit."
But like, that's insane. Like, so a good appraiser is big.
It's really okay. All right. So there's a little gray area when we don't want too much appraiser influence.
Yeah, you don't.
But there's still nothing wrong. So we're doing the deal now. Is on Leslie, 310.
Russell Woods.
Yeah, Russell Woods. Yep. Yes, I had no idea. Mm-hmm. But the listing agent was so adamant, and she would not schedule this appraisal. It took us 2 weeks, and unless she was there, because she wanted to provide the comps for this beautifully renovated rehab, whatever word. Which one is the right word to use? Whatever. Okay, house, and then it appraised. Same thing with San Juan. I wasn't there, but there was a packet there that had 3 comps to give us that 270, 275 value. Because not too long ago, we called you maybe like 2 months prior to, and you were like, no, Eric is only hitting for 240.
Right.
And then we got in a little sweet spot, and we got the 270. So, I mean, you guys can work together, listing agents and buying agents.
But is it in the best interest of the buyer's agent to try to get the property
technically
appraised?
No.
So yes. If your buyer want the house and they agree to
some lenders play with that. So I worked for a lender that said no. If the buyer cannot, this is not in the best interest of the buyer to try to rebut an appraisal. So if the appraiser say the house is worth $100, why are you trying to spend another $50,000 for the buyer?
Because I want my house.
Okay, so one lender said no, and then I've had other lenders that say, well, whoever does the rebuttal form or consideration form, go ahead.
Well, as a buyer's agent, you're trying to get the best deal for the buyer, and sometimes the best deal is to not close. Sometimes it's to get it closed. Because if the buyer really wants it and they feel the value is there, because again, there's
but you should be providing those comps to your buyer too,
right? And let the buyer decide.
Exactly, because I've had that, and they'll just ask me, "Can you run comps for me again, or pull some for me? Show me what's going on." Right. Sure, no problem. Because I want to know too. Like, I don't want my buyer overpaying for a house. Right. So we're gonna look at it. Let's look at this appraisal. Let's see what they compare the house to. Let's see what we see, and we'll compare the data. Either we agree or we disagree.
So Joe says something that's big, and he says, appraisers are afraid to do math and deal with median prices from surrounding subdivisions.
Yep.
He said, in a market with a shortage, we need to be less restrictive. That's why I don't like the neighborhood. So I hear the neighborhood stuff, but this is a Detroit thing for real for me. It's like
it's dumb.
Well, I'm not saying that they're relying on just neighborhood data. I'm saying they have to understand what makes a neighborhood work and why you're seeing such a variety. Because some people look at areas based on zip code, right? And we all know that zip code can have 5 different neighborhoods. The values can be completely different from neighbor. And the appraiser at least needs to understand what's the difference between a house on Otter Drive versus a house on Snowden.
Again,
right?
I agree.
So if they don't understand those basics, then that's what I'm saying, you have a problem.
But I'm saying like this, and you know what? We probably shouldn't. I'm going to wait till we get Joe here.
I mean, at least where I think you're going. So like, all right, if I'm in Bagley, University District, Sherwood, Forest Green, Acres.
Right.
All right. Let's say I am comparing, all right, if it works in the opposite, I don't want it. So I guess that's the problem there too.
Right.
But I'm just saying, if I got a house on Stouple.
Right.
Because Stouple is like one of the first blocks on the east side or west side of Livernois.
West side, right.
So if I got a house on Stouple and it's like the house on Warrington.
It's different.
I think that's different. But
y'all can't. So that's what I'm saying. Either it is or it ain't. Because if I walk 4 blocks, I'm on Stouple to Warrington. Warrington is a block that has smaller houses similar to the houses that are in Bagley. You can go on Warrington and find an 1,800 square foot house. That is a Tudor style. 3 bedrooms, the bath and a half. And if that's what we comparing it to, no, I don't think Warrington should be getting a higher value than Stouple.
Joe made a point, okay, because I know he's going to comment on this. He made a point that, yes, if it is the same,
right?
Yes, you can use it. So he made a
Like, did the school district change?
Nope, it didn't matter. But if
it's still within a mile,
it's still within a mile. But if it looks like Warrington looks like Stouple, the appraiser, again, these are not breaking rules. We have the guide. You
That's what I'm saying.
So you can go out. Yes, you can. Appraiser makes a comment why he had to do so. And I think Joe said he had to do a $200,000 adjustment between West Bloomfield and it might have been Southfield or something, but he did a $200,000 adjustment. Now, and that one, the underwriter approved it with no problem.
Right.
This is the only thing that I will give in that space. I had to cross Livernois to get to Warrington.
Yes.
Right.
So,
that's what I was about to say.
What about when we are in Green Acres and Sherwood Forest?
That's
we
better.
had to cross Pembroke.
That's better.
Right.
That's a better comparison.
Or you in Rosedale Park and you had to cross
whatever.
But all I'm saying is, I'm not saying the appraiser can or can't use it. I'm just saying the appraiser needs to understand the difference between Green Acres. Because if they're just looking at zip codes and streets, you get some of these appraisers, they're like, oh, they come into the area. They don't know the difference between Green. They don't know these neighborhood names.
So do you feel like it should be a difference between Green Acres and Sherwood if the square footage is the same, the style of the house is the same? Do you feel
if you're limited with comps, you're going to have to use what's available.
Right.
But there's a market value difference for sure.
Right. You mean as far as what the consumer is willing to pay, for sure.
Right.
So
but that impacts the appraised value because that's how you eventually get your comp value.
But I don't agree because people, so if somebody is not willing to buy it, then you wouldn't have had the sale. You wouldn't have somebody buying it for that dollar amount. So
but we know
so that means that the market is saying, yeah, I'm willing, even though this is not Sherwood, it is Green Acres, I'm willing to pay what y'all saying is
but until you get enough comps that say that, the appraiser is not using
So I feel like that when y'all talking that Bagley, when she talking about Stouple crossing over Livernois, going to Warrington, I agree with that because you can go in Bagley and find other homes in Bagley that are not the same price as Warrington.
Right.
So that makes sense. But when you between Sherwood and Green Acres, no.
Because you're talking about a side street instead of a major intersection. And we ain't crossing no waterway, ain't no parks.
But what I'm saying is the appraiser all I'm saying is the appraiser needs to know that.
Right.
Some appraisers come from other areas. They don't know the difference between University, Sherwood.
What's going to make them...
Right, so Darla basically trying to get to this fight.
It's not one because I've been saying it forever. They don't have it, but Joe's saying something on here.
Use a computer.
Joe is saying lenders are forcing me to overwhelmingly prove values in Detroit, but won't say a word about a value in the suburbs. He also says that the legal definition of appraisal is opinion of value,
and their opinions.
But he said, but the math has to math.
Yeah.
He says, he did say something. He said, that's not doable. I think he's responding to the, what you were talking about going across the Livernois. He said, University District does not carry the same median price points and marketability as Bagley.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah, we talk to market. So I get that. Obviously, I'm just more so saying, because we had these conversations all the time. So Shaka and I are buying properties constantly. And one of the things that we often are up against is, and I pointed out to him and he'd be like, what? And I'd be like, well, it's Green Acres. And I'd be like, let me show you something. And we cross the side street. And we dealt with that when we had our grandma property. Mm-hmm. I'm like, we have grandma property. We are not in Rosedale Park.
That's crazy.
Right.
To me.
I'm talking about so marketability in Rosedale Park and Grandma. So yes, when you cross Schoolcraft, the marketability changes.
Yes, agreed.
But when you are on the other side of Schoolcraft, where Grandma and Rosedale Park still meet,
Right.
and we ain't talking about and then also we're not talking about North Rosedale. So we're not talking about we're not talking about North Rosedale Park at all.
Right.
We're talking about simply Rosedale Park, just north of Schoolcraft, where you have Grandma and Rosedale Park across a simple little side street.
Right.
The marketability not different in that space.
Let me say this, because all the neighborhoods you just mentioned, imagine an appraiser coming here from that normally does like Metamora or Grand Blanc or something like that. They only do 2 or 3 appraisals in Detroit a year, right? All the neighborhoods you just mentioned, they're clueless about that. All they're seeing is some comp data, half mile, 1 mile. Oh, I can go up to 1 mile. How accurate you think that appraisal is going to be compared to somebody like Joe or somebody that does enough Detroit to really understand these neighborhoods and these blocks?
I feel like it should not matter because I'm not from here, so that's what I'm saying.
But what I'm saying is we're still dealing with human beings. That person,
that's the problem.
That's why they say it's an opinion,
right,
and their opinion should be able to be rebutted.
Right, but the point I'm making is the lenders, and when you hire an appraiser and they accept that assignment, there should be something to say, okay, how much experience do you have in this particular area?
I don't think it should matter. It should not matter because the data is the data.
It should matter because if they don't know how to get the right data, it's going to be trash.
Then you should not be an appraiser. You should not be an appraiser. So what I'm saying is, nobody can give me marketability difference between going north of Schoolcraft between Grandma and Rosedale. Nobody can tell me that. You can't even put a price on there.
The only people that I feel like can is the buyer. So when I'm talking to Shaka about that, when we in the middle of buying a house, before we ever get an appraiser, I'm just more so pointing out how our buyer is going to view it. And then the second part of the conversation is, now I may be talking about we should not be subject to this from the appraisal standpoint, because if we're not talking about the main roads, railroads, bodies of water, then, and we're talking about literally a side street,
right?
We're not really talking about, so I can tell Shaka maybe, all right, you understand this is Rosedale Park in Breton.
Right.
Which is very different from Rosedale Park and Artesian.
But you can see it though.
Right.
So I'm saying that I don't have to be, so again, I don't have like what y'all have.
But what
y'all
she just explained is not data. That's something you physically looking at.
It is data. When you go look at the comparables, you look at the areas.
But just like with me, before I bought that property, I looked at the data, and I realized that if I held it, I could make money as well because it was sitting on almost an acre.
Right.
So you're gonna look past all of this, and then find the worst houses you can find, and then I supposed to swallow that. And if I bring back data that works, you don't touch it at all.
Right. Yeah. No, what I'm saying, Reg, is this. You can see it. So what I said about, y'all know all these, I don't even think about what the name of the place is. All I do is look at the data. You know what I'm saying? I look at the parameters that normal appraisals are going off of. But that's important to the
market value of the property.
Because
the consumer is buying based on,
I don't agree,
the Breton compared to Artesian.
No, well, they buying based on the difference. So listen. All right. So the Bagley, what she just said about the Stopel versus the Warrington, you can see it. Right. But you can't see it. There is no marketability difference in Warrington, when we at Canterbury and Shrewsbury or whatever the hell the name of it. So there is no marketability difference. You cannot sit here and tell me you can't say, oh well, because this is Sherwood, I think we should get $40,000 more because this is considered Sherwood and you over there in Green Acres.
And you 3 doors
but
over.
You right there.
You 3 houses away.
What's the scenario here? How could this issue be dealt with?
There ain't nothing we can do.
But
Erica already told you the solution.
Yeah. But even if you use that solution, it has to be
Erica's
people.
Solution don't work.
It has to be people to do it as a group and as a unit, as opposed to doing one person have a complaint.
I got another way
Actually,
you could do
I
it.
have
person have a
seen it. I
complaint
have
means
seen it when
nothing.
Erica's solution. I have seen where a rebuttal and a reconsideration has worked. But what Darla is talking about is like everybody bonding together, and when we get these, like when they're like so clear that there's a bias in this appraisal, we should be filing the complaint.
Well, that's what Erica said.
You know what? You know what's sad? The sad part, like the few times I had this happen to me, I had a listing. This was in Southfield over like the Beacon Square area, and the house appraised for like $190. We were under contract for $250, right? And that deal fell through. We put it back on the market. We had 3 offers, all at asking price or above. With the new buyer, got a new, of course, new appraisal. It appraised no problem, and then it closed. And the previous agent was calling me like, well, how did y'all get it to appraise? I was like, well, your appraisal was just a bad appraisal to start with. Like, the appraiser used the only foreclosure, and we haven't had any, they used the only foreclosure comp in the entire area, and it was like 4 months old or something like that. And it was like, why would you use that? But it was just like I guess his buyer was just so upset they didn't get that property.
I would have been. Yeah, but the agent should have. I mean, but your seller probably wouldn't have wanted to do it anyway. But the other way though is stop you. So something we're learning is certain companies we're not using their ass. Like if you sending out bad appraisals, we got a guy right now. He is begging us. We did a lot of deals with him.
Yep.
And they start BSing on them appraisals. And so we're not using you no more. You know what I mean? Like, so I think that's going to be the way that's another way other than what Erica and Darla are suggesting as far as going to Laura. But just go to the people's, like, where we at now? We at UWM.
Right, yeah.
You know what I mean? Because that's where we've been having success at.
Right.
So until we don't have, we one of those people like, as long as you doing good business, we're going to do all our business with you.
Right.
Look, I'll call Shaka in a minute and be like, we done with them. And he'd be like, what?
I think some lenders talking through their appraisers. Like, we really don't want to do
business. That's what I'm
business.
saying. Like, I do.
We really don't want to do business here. That's what it is.
And if you don't, that's a real thing. Then don't do it.
Right. Like, I literally, Shaka be thinking I'm crazy, but I be like,
but you can feel the energy.
No, I'm like, we missing the meeting. There's something happening that we don't know about. We ain't invited to it. Yeah. But these appraisers, like, they getting the memo.
Like, it's like they blend together and they know that this is where their taste buds is, and this is where it's not.
Well, they run into what Joe.
We don't have
suggested.
taste for that.
Joe said that they are making. They don't want that. They don't want to fight. You know what I'm saying? This is supposed to be an easy job for them.
Right.
Now you asking them to do hard work.
Would it be wrong?
And they're not vested. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
If you was to put your own AMC together and people would just go to you.
Yeah, but then that might create issues.
So let's hit a few suggestions before we like wrap it up. And I think one of it is, have a budget of about like maybe $2,100 to $2,400 to spend for your appraisals.
Just in case you get a bad one.
You may have to hedge your bet. It was something that I had enough wherewithal when I was refinancing my property. I don't know where it came from, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to call a couple of my friends in the industry, let them know I ain't trying to do bad business, but I need this to go well. This is my primary residence, so I got to shop it, and I got to get through the appraisal part. And I paid for 2 appraisals because I needed to close fast, so I had to do everything like simultaneously. So it wasn't no love lost, and I wasn't trying to take business, but you just have to understand, like, I don't know how this appraisal is going to go.
Yeah, Jay Williams said appraisers be suckers. They do though. Like the crazy part, they be. I guess I get it. I used to be mad like how Darla is right now. I used to be really like, man, upset. But now I get it. Those people, they got a living, and they do have to answer to somebody. You know what I'm saying? So they work for that lender, and if that lender is doing what Joe is suggesting that they're doing, they're questioning your appraisals.
Right.
And honestly, look. We haven't had a lot of foreclosures, but it seems like we may be headed towards that way.
Right.
And don't know appraiser, if that's your livelihood,
it's a blinker.
You don't want to be on you don't want to be on that side where the some of your appraisals that you did are now foreclosing, and now they coming back looking at you, and now your livelihood is gone.
That's true.
I get it, you know what I'm saying? But
give a suggestion.
I feel like sticking in your estate is big because they do know. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Deal with a local lender.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there was one more thing. So we talked about maybe ordering multiple appraisals, sticking within the state, and then like if filing a complaint, right? So we know we can do.
Obviously, you can meet the appraiser at the property and give them comps.
Well, we're talking about when that don't work. We're talking about after once you get your appraisal. And I would also say maybe have get a second opinion. Like I may call Reggie and be like, yo, I'm about to file a complaint, or Shaka, take a look at it, make sure I ain't tripping. Because I don't want to be just running around filing false complaints and shit either.
That's right. That was
my concern over being overly zealous and coming after someone. Are you really coming after them? Or are you trying to get treated fair?
Right.
That's where the line, you have to draw the line somewhere.
Because you do. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, you said you got to draw the line.
If you can't be honest, and we know what happened when the market fell. Right. We didn't have access to appraisers no more. We couldn't talk to them directly. It changed the dynamics because they made that the issue. But at the same time, now we don't have these parameters there, and now you can just do us any kind of way you want. Is that how we got to do? We got to leave it there, or do we got to put all guns blazing? Because I'm not playing.
Right, you messing with my money, but you do got to be realistic. A lot of people are. So the issue is it's some bad apples though. It's some bad apples that have some shit out there, and then they think that, and they do. They may have, even if they did do it for a rehab, they got a C3. Even though you did do it for a rehab, you just did a shitty job, and you really shouldn't get the number. So then that's the issue. You know what I mean? You do have those people that's in there. So almost everybody feel like their value should be what they think it should be. Doesn't mean that that's true.
Right. Yeah, but if I had did a terrible rehab and it wasn't top notch, it would be different. If I went in there and threw it together, then I'll be like, I'm struggling here.
Right.
I didn't do a struggle job.
Right.
I did a top notch job.
That's a wrap.
Well,